Hello everyone, nice to see you again. Today we're going to look at the comic Desperate Dan. This is a comic strip from The Dandy, a popular comic magazine in England, which unfortunately doesn't run anymore, as far as I know. But it's very famous and very popular and was for a very long time. Desperate Dan is one of the short comic strips within the magazine. We have already looked at a few of these before. If you click there, there's one of the other ones we've looked at. You can watch those before, or you can just move on with this one because these comic strips are not really connected. So, I'm going to read the comic strip to you, including trying to do my best American, southern United States American accent, which is probably terrible, but hopefully it will add to some of the amusement, make it a little bit more fun for you. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to explain any of the new words or phrases as I go. So let's get started. So here we can see the title of the comic strip, Desperate Dan, and this is this big guy here that we can see wearing a red top and a black waistcoat. This is often what he wears, and also blue jeans and red boots. And he's also wearing a little neck scarf, a little blue neck scarf. When a scarf is really small like that, you can call it a neck scarf. And here you can see a little indication of what this particular episode of Desperate Dan is going to be about. Hic, 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 hic. And this is the sound that we make when we have hiccups. Hiccups. Hiccup. Hic. Hiccups. And we can have that obviously if we drink too much alcohol, or perhaps we swallow the wrong in a not a very good way, and after that we get hiccups, or we eat too much food or something like that. So here we have three characters: this old man, this guy, and Desperate Dan. The old man says, "Dan, Wild Bill Hiccups in town. He's staying at my place." And here, this is Wild Bill Hiccup. That's his name. His name is Wild Bill Hiccup. Hiccup is part of his name. And he says, "Hic, howdy." So he says, howdy. Howdy is an American way to say hello. Howdy, howdy. It probably is related to how are you and shortened, but I'm not exactly sure on that. But it means hello. It's a very friendly American way to say hello. Howdy. Here you can see that this guy is staying at the old man's house, and this is his house here. So this old man is called Zeke. Zeke. And it says Zeke's hovel. So this is his house. And a hovel is a word to describe a house that's in really bad condition. Really terrible condition. And also very, very basic. It's probably made of just wood. It might not have running water. Probably the furniture is very basic. If there is any furniture, a hovel is a very simple, very basic home. So, let's move down to the next part. I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can see really clearly. Okay. So, Dan says, "Howdy, I bet I could get rid of those hiccups." Hic, people have tried, nothing's worked. So, Desperate Dan is confident that he knows how to get rid of, I can't remember his name, Wild Bill Hiccup. So Desperate Dan is confident that he can get rid of Wild Bill Hiccups. Wild Bill Hiccups. But Wild Bill says, well, many people have tried and nothing has worked. I don't know about you, but share down in the comments with me, what do you do if you have hiccups? I think lots of people have different techniques. Maybe you do the same thing I do, which is to hold my breath. That's what I try to do, but usually it doesn't work for me. Let me know if you try that too, if you try to hold your breath when you have hiccups, or if you've got a different thing that we can do. You can share it with all the subscribers on this channel, so everyone can learn how to get rid of their hiccups. So we can see, just to describe a little bit of the vocabulary, Wild Bill Hiccup is wearing a yellow top, a yellow waistcoat, a red and white checked neck scarf, a red and white checked neck scarf. Checked means it has squares on it, lines like that and lines like that to make squares, and a cowboy hat. He's also wearing a pair of glasses or a pair of spectacles. He has a grey moustache, just like I have a moustache, but mine is not grey yet. And he has some grey hair. And this guy, Zeke, has a long, unkempt beard. If your beard is unkempt, it means it's very untidy. Your hair can be unkempt, or your clothes can be unkempt. I'll just put that word down here so you can see it. Unkempt. It's a really nice word. And even though it says unkempt, we don't really have the opposite. We can't say something is kempt. We can only say it's unkempt, so untidy. So, what's Desperate Dan going to try? Let's see. You need a big drink of water. That'll get rid of them. So, Desperate Dan is saying what you need to do to get rid of your hiccups, to have a lot of water, to drink a lot of water. And here, it's not just a big glass. It is an entire bathtub. It looks like a bathtub or an entire tub of water. Everything in the stories of Desperate Dan is extreme, because Desperate Dan is a big guy who eats massive amounts of food, who is very strong, and everything is done to an extreme in these comic strips. So he is not just getting one glass of water, he's getting, of course, a tub of water for Wild Bill Hiccup to drink. And Wild Bill is just touching his chin, or touching his bottom lip, thinking, really? I'm gonna drink all that? I'm not sure. And here we can see Zeke as well, pulling an expression of surprise at Desperate Dan's suggestion here. Now a little bit more vocabulary. We can see a chimney here in the background. We can see Zeke's hovel. We can see a cactus with lots of spikes. Spikes, just like my little plant here is very spiky. Ow! We can see a little bit of a fence. And we can see a wooden post here. A wooden post. You could also call this a post. And this hovel is made of wood, and each of these bits of wood we call planks. So there are lots of planks of wood. We can also see that Desperate Dan, it looks like he has a gun, or maybe it could be a knife. And if it's a gun, then we'd usually call this a holster. The thing that holds the gun is called a holster. A holster. I'll put that there. A holster. You can see that this guy has a holster too for his gun. And he's also wearing a leather belt, his yellow waistcoat, and stuff, etc., etc. Okay? So, next part. Let's see if it works. Desperate Dan says, "Hic!" Oh no, sorry. Of course. Wild Bill Hiccup says, "Hic! This is Zeke's laundry! Yuck!" So here's Zeke, and he's raising up his walking stick. Here's his walking stick, or his cane. We can say a cane, or we can say a walking stick. And he's raising it up in the air, thinking, "What are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? What are you doing, Dad? That's my laundry." And here we can see some onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia are words that sound like real sounds, like pop, pop, or here, splosh, splosh, which sounds like the sound of the water splashing on the ground as Dan tips up. He tips. To tip something is to do that, to tip it, and he's tipping it up. He's tipping up this big tub of water full of Zeke's laundry, so his dirty clothes that are being washed, onto Wild Bill Hiccup. And I don't think it's going to work, but let's see. Is it going to work? Here is Wild Bill Hiccup, and he says, hic, 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 hic. So, clearly it did not work. We can also see Dan here scratching his head. Scratching his head because he is confused. He's confused. He expected this trick to work. He expected the trick of drinking a lot of water to work, but it didn't work. Okay. Just looking back at that, I think it does look like it is a gun in there, I think. So, yeah, we can call it a holster. And Zeke says, drinking loads of water doesn't stop hiccups. We need to see the wise man. Now, wise. Wise is a word which is like intelligent or clever. But it means it's a little bit more when someone has a lot of experience and they are able to make good decisions. Someone who's very wise is able to make good decisions, is very intelligent, and usually knows the right thing to do, and thinks about all the aspects of something. So a couple more examples. So first of all, if you need some advice, maybe there's a certain person you always go to, a certain friend, a certain member of your family, because you know they always give really good advice, because that person makes good decisions, that person is intelligent, and that person has a lot of experience. So you trust the decisions and the advice that they give you. So in that case, you could say that they are a wise person. They always give very good advice. Or another example of wise could be if you go traveling. If you go traveling for 2 months and you have a budget, you have a certain amount of money to spend. Maybe you have £500 to go traveling. Well, you have to be wise how you spend your money, because if you spend it all at once, then you won't have any left and you will have to go home. So you have to think carefully and be wise about how you spend your money so that you can make that money last. Okay, so hopefully that gives more of an idea of someone who is wise. An interesting point, if you're a German speaker, then to know in German is wissen, and that is connected to the word wise. So wise comes from that word wissen in German, so to know something, so to be intelligent, wise. So here we can see Zeke holding his boxers. These are boxer shorts or underwear, his underwear or his boxer shorts with love hearts on, and his other laundry, all of his laundry, and they're going to go to see a wise man. So let's see who they go to see. Okay, so let's see what happens. Wild Bill Hiccup says, "Hic, do you have a potion to get rid of my hiccups, wise one?" And the wise one, the wise person, the wise one says, and here's Zeke looking very excited. He's obviously very confident that the wise one will have some good advice. And here you see the wise one's teepee behind. The wise one is a Native American character. And here is the wise one's idea. Tickle, tickle, tickle! And he's got a feather and he's tickling Wild Bill Hiccup. And Wild Bill Hiccup is obviously laughing because he finds it very ticklish. Ticklish. Something that's ticklish makes you feel like you're being tickled. Okay, a person who is ticklish is a person who easily laughs when they are tickled. And he is obviously quite ticklish. And the feather touching him feels ticklish. So he says, and he's running away as the wise one is sticking out his tongue and running after him, tickling him with the feather. And I say wise one because when we do that in English, it means that we don't really believe it. Or someone said something, but we don't believe it. So someone said he was wise, but look at him. It's not a very wise way to behave. He's acting like a silly person, not a wise, intelligent, thoughtful person. Okay, and Wild Bill Hiccup says, if that's the wise one, I wouldn't want to meet the daft one. And Dan says, Wild Bill doesn't need tickling, he needs scaring. To Zeke. And here is the wise one now, tickling himself, having fun and laughing, tickling himself with that feather. So here, Wild Bill Hiccup says, if that guy is the wise one, if that's the wise guy, I wouldn't want to meet the daft guy. Daft means silly or stupid, a person who's stupid or silly. So someone who's silly makes childish jokes, or they don't think about things in a clever, clear way. They say things that are maybe ridiculous, silly, ridiculous. So he's saying, if that's the clever guy, that's the wise guy, I don't want to meet the daft one. The daft one must be really stupid. Okay, if that's the wise one is like that. And here, Dan is whispering to Zeke about his plan. His plan is to scare Wild Bill Hiccup to get rid of his hiccups. Now, I want to stop just for 20 seconds to have a little advert for my channel. If you would like to support me, you can do that via my Patreon, and the link is here in the picture, but I'll also put it down in the description of the video. Your support matters a lot to my channel. It allows me to create more videos, focus more on the YouTube and Instagram side of my teaching than my actual teaching, so I can make more content for you guys. But on top of that, I also offer a free lesson every single month to one of my Patreon subscribers. So if you win, you can get a free lesson, and in that, I can help you with whatever you would like, and also I can give you a bit of a plan, help you with a plan, so you know how to improve your English and how is the best way to move forward with your English. So let's get back to the video. Here we can see it's later now. It's later on. And here, Desperate Dan is sitting on his sofa. Behind him, we can see a picture. Uncle Sid, it says, with a snake and a cowboy hat on top of it. I'm sure this is probably referencing something, but I'm sorry, I don't know what the reference is. I don't know what it's talking about, but it must be connected to something. Now, here is Wild Bill Hiccup, and he says, I think I'll have a bath before I go to bed. Okay. And here's Zeke, and Zeke says, don't forget to brush your teeth! And we can see some more onomatopoeia. Brush! And here is Zeke brushing his teeth. Of course, he has lost all his teeth, so he now has dentures. Dentures are fake teeth, teeth that we can put in our mouth and take out again. Dentures. Put that word down there. Dentures. Obviously, he shouts it, and Wild Bill Hiccup is a little bit surprised. So he's jumped, and his hat has flown off of his head. Now here is Wild Bill Hiccup having a bath, using a brush to scrub his back. To scrub his back or to brush his back. And he says, this is more like it. And as we can see, he's in the bath, but he's still wearing his belt. Why do you think he's wearing his belt? I think maybe it's because he likes to have his gun on him at all times, because he's a real cowboy. He's a real cowboy, or he's a real man from the Wild West, so he always keeps his gun on him. But it's probably not the best idea in the bath, I don't think. I mean, I don't know much about guns, but I imagine it's probably not good to get them very wet. So here we can see a jug on the chest of drawers. This is a chest of drawers. 1, 2, 3, 4 drawers we can see in the picture. And on top of the chest of drawers is a big jug, probably for filling up the bath with hot water, for filling up the tub. And there's also a mirror here on the left, a mirror. Roar! Ah! Here, Wild Bill Hiccup jumps out of the bath, covering himself with his towel. His spectacles or his glasses fly off his face, and his hat flies up into the air. And there is Dan looking pretty pleased with himself for the scare that he has organised for Wild Bill Hiccup. But will it work? Will it get rid of Wild Bill Hiccup's hiccups? And here we can see it's a bear. Probably it's a grizzly bear. I imagine it's a grizzly bear, which is a type of bear, grizzly bear. Let's see what happens next. Here he is, Wild Bill Hiccup, going to bed. Finally, I get to relax. And here we can see he is carrying candle, but this is not any candle. It's a stick of dynamite. So, obviously, a stick of dynamite is not a great idea, but I guess this was planned by Desperate Dan again. So, let's see what happens as the wick burns and it hits the stick of dynamite. Boom! It explodes. Will that get rid of his hiccups? Night, night. Night. So here we can see Desperate Dan and Zeke laughing to themselves at the sight. They're laughing at the sight of Wild Bill Hiccup, who is completely burnt. He's almost burnt alive, but it's a comic strip. It's a comic, so I don't think he's actually going to die. The characters can resist a lot in comic strips, especially in Desperate Dan. So here we can see all of his clothes are burnt and even his hat as well. We could say a nice phrase here, which is his hat is burnt to cinders. His hat is burnt to cinders. When something is burnt to cinders, it just means it's completely burnt. It's burnt to small little pieces. Cinders usually mean little bits of burnt things. When you burn a log, a big piece of wood, when you burn a log, after you've finished the fire or you've finished burning it, there will be some cinders, little pieces of wood. Normally bits that have not completely burnt, but have mostly burnt, and there are little pieces all on the ground under the fire. So his hat has burnt to cinders and all of his clothes have burnt to cinders. So we have quite a big image here, so I'll have to zoom out a little bit so you can see it all. There we go. Okay. The next morning. So long, Wild Bill Hiccup. See ya. Hiccup. So much for you and Dan getting rid of my hiccups. And here's Zeke winking at Desperate Dan. So he's saying so long, so long, so long. That's a way to say goodbye. So long. I guess it means it's a long time until we'll see each other again, I suppose. But so long is a way to say goodbye. So long, especially when you're not going to see someone for a while. So long. And here, Wild Bill Hiccup says, see ya, so goodbye. So he's still got his hiccups. So much for you and Dan getting rid of my hiccups. So much for you and Dan getting rid of my hiccups. So much for that is a phrase or an expression to say that you had a hope or you had a desire, but it's not worked, and you've accepted that it's not worked, and you're moving on. Okay, so if you have a plan or a hope or a desire, and you think it's going to work, and then at some point you realise this is not working, and you have to accept that. You say, well, so much for that. So much for that. Or in this case, so much for you and Dan getting rid of my hiccups. It didn't work. Let me give you a couple more examples of so much for that. So we could say, first of all, I was planning to have a picnic today, but it's raining. So much for that. So I had a plan to have a picnic, but now it's raining, so I can't, and I accept that. So much for that. Or I had thought that I was going to get a promotion at work. But the promotion was given to someone else. So much for that. Or so much for that promotion. Or so much for that raise, an increase in money. So much for that raise. So I had this idea, I had this desire, I had this plan, but it didn't work out. It didn't happen, and I accept it. Okay, and we say, so much for that. So, here, I wonder why Zeke is winking at Desperate Dan. What do you think? Let's see. A little bit of vocabulary first, though. Here we can see a carriage. We could call this a carriage, or we could call it a coach. You could also call it a wagon, but this style is probably most commonly referred to as a carriage. And there are some horses pulling the carriage. Zeke is in the driver's seat. He's in the driver's seat. We can see a lamp here, a lamp or a torch used to light up the way at night. And we can also see the luggage on top of the carriage and a label here which says Wild Bill. So this is Wild Bill's luggage. And there's more luggage here on the back, and there's also looks like maybe that's something just to cover the luggage, perhaps, maybe. We've got the door of the carriage, and also some little pieces of fabric to cover the windows if it starts to rain, and the wheels of the carriage, and also a little metal step, so you can climb up onto the driver's seat. So, okay, again, we've got a nice big image, and Wild Bill Hiccup says, "Hiccup, I arrived in Cactusville, Wild Bill Hiccup, and I'm leaving, Wild Bill Hiccup." So, what does he mean here? He means that he arrived into Cactusville with the name Wild Bill Hiccup. That's what he's known for, because he's always hiccuping. That's his character, his name. He's always hiccuping. And that's how he came to Cactusville, and he's leaving still with the same name. He's still leaving Wild Bill Hiccup because he still has hiccups. So here we can see Zeke. He is making the carriage go really fast. He's making the horses charge. You could say charge, go really, really fast towards the edge of the cliff. Towards the edge of the cliff. "Let's have one more try. What are you doing?" And Zeke has released the horses. And they go flying off the cliff. Aye! Flying towards the ground. Aye! And here is Desperate Dan standing at the bottom of the ravine. We could call this a ravine or a canyon or a ravine, place where it's much, much lower the ground than the high up point. So a ravine or a canyon. And he catches the carriage just with one hand because he is extremely strong. Catch! Okay, and here, let's see if it worked. Screech, shriek, wail. So these are all different words for kind of shouting and making a lot of noise. Wailing is usually the sound you make when you're in extreme pain or extreme sadness, like wah! Okay, like a baby would do. Shrieking is a very high-pitched sound. Shriek, that kind of sound. And screech is usually kind of the sound that car tires make when you brake, when you're driving a car fast and you brake. But it also could be a kind of similar sound that you could make as a person. So Old Bill Hiccup is making lots of sounds because he's absolutely terrified, very scared, very terrified. And Zeke says, "We did it. He stopped hiccuping." And Dan, "Now we just need to stop him screaming." So at the end of it, they have fixed the situation. He doesn't have any hiccups anymore, but now he's just got trauma. That's what we would say. He's got trauma. He's gone through a terrible experience. And because of that, he's very scared and fearful. So he's got some serious trauma now, a terrible experience, which he might need some therapy for, I think. I think he might need to see a therapist to resolve this problem. So that is the end of our story. I have a couple of questions for you. So let me see. Question number 1 for you is why did Zeke let the horses go at this point? Why do you think Zeke let the horses go? So you can pause the video here, and then after I'll give you a suggested answer. Okay, so I'll give a suggested answer now. So I would say he let the horses go because the horses would not have survived would not have survived the fall. Where they would not have survived the fall, so we let them go, so they survive. What other question? Okay, my other question for you is, what is Desperate Dan's first attempt to get rid of Wild Bill Hiccups? What's his first attempt to get rid of Wild Bill Hiccups? Again, you can pause it here and then I'll give a suggested answer. Okay, so his first attempt to get rid of Wild Bill Hiccups is to make Wild Bill drink a lot of water, and he tips up the bathtub full of, or the tub full of Zeke's laundry and water over the top of Wild Bill Hiccup. But of course, it doesn't work. Now, finally, one thing you can do before you go, just to help my channel, but also to help your memory of new words and vocab, is to write a phrase down in the comments. You can choose any phrase that you found interesting or that was a new phrase for you and share it with me and everyone else watching. Or I have one suggested for you, which is this one. So much for that. So much for that. So much for that. And this, as I say, is what we can use if we have a plan, an idea, a desire, but it doesn't work and we have to accept that it didn't work and move on. We have to accept it and move on. So we say, well, so much for that. So much for that. So you can write that down in the comments, so much for that, or well, so much for that. And that would be great. Thank you very much. It was lovely to see you all. Thanks for joining today, and I will see you again soon. I hope you have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon. It was very nice to see you again, guys. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.